Great to see everybody this morning. Thanks so much for being here. Once again, great turnout today. So hats off to Chad Burke and the team at Economic Alliance, my friend Karen Gregory, and others that helped put this event together. 16 years, which is really exciting. And so we do work all over the Houston region, really no other group in the region. Lots of great stuff happening, but nobody else does an event that's of this size and scale each year in the Houston region. So great to be with you this morning. We covered a little bit of intros, but I think we'll go maybe a little deeper on that and just share a little bit more about the organizations that each of these esteemed panelists represent and the areas that they cover. And then we're going to try to jump into some questions about the economic development process. So you're going to hear a lot from some great companies throughout the day today that are making significant investments, creating jobs across the Gulf Coast region. Why did they get here? Why did they land here? How did they end up locating and picking these sites and putting these facilities here? I think is part of what we want to try to talk about today. What are some of those drivers and factors as to what helped those companies locate in and around the Texas Gulf Coast? So with that, I'm going to go down the line here real quick and then maybe just a little bit more introduction on the organization that you represent and the specific area that you cover. So Jessica, I'll start with you.
Thanks. There we go. Thanks, Craig. So I'm a little complicated. I am actually employed by Entergy as part of their economic development team, but I also chair the Southeast Texas Economic Development Foundation's Regional Economic Development Initiative, which is a collaboration of local economic development professionals, institutions of higher education, the ports, the utilities, chambers of commerce, in the four-county region of Hardin, Jefferson, Orange, and Jasper counties. And it's our mission to promote and organize those stakeholders to bring in new business and to respond to leads from the state or from individual companies who may be looking to locate in our territory. So we're pooling our resources, both human and financial, to further the economic opportunity of those parts of Southeast Texas.
All right, thanks, Jessica. Jonas.
Good morning. Thank you, Craig. Thank you. I am Jonas Titas with VEDC Regional Partnership, and we basically represent a large swath of Texas, everything outside of Corpus, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston, the rural regions along the Gulf Coast. It's 9 counties that we informally work in, 4 counties that we have contracts for service within. And our regional initiative is basically copying the playbook of the Economic Alliance and Greater Houston Partnership. And VEDC has been around for 40 years, working primarily within Victoria County, but we offered our services to the surrounding cities and counties, and that recently has been very, very well received, and it's led to a really, really active time period for prospect development for our area of Texas. We've seen a wide range of industries of late, and we've very happily and proudly been a part of over $6 billion of investments in our region, and we want to continue to keep that momentum going, continue to be a good partner, continue to support organizations like the Economic Alliance, GHP, and all of our surrounding areas of Texas. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Jonas. Thanks for being here. Last but not least, Mr. Chad Carson.
So Chad Carson, Vice President Economic Development of the Economic Alliance of the Houston Port Region. We represent 225 companies, 12 cities, communities, Port Houston, Harris County. We're led by the initiative of economic development, supported by public policy, workforce development, transportation infrastructure, quality of life, and then thought leadership, events that you're pretty much sitting in here today. So representing the largest petrochemical complex in the world, the nation's busiest port, a stable investment environment made possible by our members through our policy work, and ultimately trying to grow and market the Houston Port region.
All right, thanks, Chad. So you might be asking yourself, right, why are these communities all up here together on a panel? Aren't they competing against each other, but we would say, right, in Texas, right, economic development is a team sport. Our communities collaborate together, not just in the Houston region, but even across the state of Texas. I'll just give one example of that kind of impacts this area that we're in. So we all know Samsung is building their big chips manufacturing facility in Taylor, Texas, and Central Texas. But Sumitomo Chemicals is one of their tier 1 suppliers, and Sumitomo is locating their chemicals facility over in Baytown to help serve that project in Central Texas. So one example of why we collaborate and work together, because wins that happen in other parts of the state are going to be beneficial across the state or have opportunities for other communities. And economic development means a lot of things to a lot of different people and constituents in terms of what that looks like. But when you look at overall, if you like working on big projects and industrial deals, the Gulf Coast is the place to be. And so excited to have from Corpus Christi to the Golden Triangle here to talk about some of that project work. So we'll jump into that first and foremost. Jonas, I'll start with you on this question. What types of projects have you seen in the Victoria area the last few years, and what are some of the deals or types of projects you're working on right now?
Yeah, appreciate that, Craig. So we're bad at naming things at VEDC, but we've referred to this recent time period as our golden era of economic development. So we've been able to kind of ascertain or try and figure out what forces are coalescing around us and what has led to this really energetic, robust time period of prospect activity. And we're trying to put all of our projects in different buckets and kind of understand the factors behind that. So the first one, and I'm sure these, we're probably a lot more similar than we are different. But the first one are critical minerals. Project examples like the Samsung project in Taylor is they need critical elements to support and drive the facilities like that. So the Gulf Coast of Texas is a primary perfect place to import materials to serve the high-tech corridors and high-tech hubs of Texas. And in our particular area of Texas is what we have is several large mega sites. We have room to grow. We have a large labor force, a highly skilled labor force that spans, it's easy to travel through for a long distance. So in the critical minerals phase, we recently have been working with magnesium projects, cobalt projects. Also, we have a lot of metals and ores projects. We have seen a lot of activity in pig iron. We've seen activity in steel mills. We've recently announced a project for rare earth element processing in partnership with one of our largest employers is Dow, and I know is represented here. Chemical world, we've had battery additives projects, one that's part of the electrical vehicle supply chain that will serve large OEM in Austin, as well as several chemical projects, the next iteration of chemicals, the blues and greens. First ammonia is one of our green ammonia projects that is advancing and hoping to get under construction later this year. And then energy, also a partnership with Dow, is a lot of nuclear projects. A small modular nuclear reactor cogeneration project was announced 2 years ago on their Seadrift campus. And then we also have a large OEM in our backyard with Caterpillar. So with recent geopolitical changes, seeing a lot of pressure from Caterpillar post-pandemic, and also with some of the impending tariffs, is a lot of their supplier network is becoming much more localized, and we're working closely with them. Just last week, we hosted our fourth annual supplier summit within Victoria, and we had about 200 business representatives from around the world, and that's been a successful initiative for us. We've had 6 announcements out of that over the last 18 months. So.
You've been busy. A lot of stuff going on. Jessica, I'll come to you with same question. Kind of what project activity have you seen in your area, and then what kind of deals are you working on right now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure none of you were around during this time, but in 1901, something happened in Beaumont called Spindletop. If you were there, please raise your hand, and we will give you a round of applause.
Chad.
But obviously, since that time, Beaumont and Port Arthur has been known for the oil refining capacity that has been established there. And certainly, our economy has been built around those assets and the infrastructures that have been built because of it. And through the innovation of those industries, we are starting to see, you call it a golden era, we're calling it an innovation age, You're starting to see those established industries that have called Southeast Texas home for many, many years still engaging in that same drive to fuel America and to fuel our world with innovative fuels, clean carbon fuels. So we are working a lot with LNG. We're fortunate to have the Port of Beaumont and the Sabine-Neches Navigation District and the Port of Port Arthur. We also work very closely with our neighbor across the waterway in Louisiana. But Port Arthur LNG, the Sempra project, Sempra Infrastructure, Golden Pass LNG, and then our neighbor across the river with Cheniere are critical companies that are employing our local workforce. We're also working a lot with sustainable aviation fuel projects. There is significant woody biomass to the north of us in the East Texas area. That area has been designated as a BDO zone, which allows for credits to be received by manufacturers of those types of fuels. So sustainable aviation fuel working with American Airlines, Southwest Airlines to decarbonize their fleet.
Oh, that's great. From Spindletop to sustainable aviation fuels, right? That's
All the way.
Exciting to see kind of the evolution of the growth. Chad, what about you? What kind of activity are you seeing in this area that we're sitting in?
When I'm going to start, I don't think I have to remind folks, but we're in the largest growth engine of opportunity probably in the world, right? And over the last 15 years, we've seen nearly $100 billion of investment up and down the coast, but Economic Alliance has only been involved in a portion of that to about $19 billion, 84 projects, $19 billion of capital investment, and about 3,300 jobs or so within that over the last 15 years. So it comes out to about 5 projects a year, 300 jobs each, and about $1 billion a year, which is absolutely phenomenal for any community to attract $1 billion of investment a year over 15 years. So what has driven that? Simply the shale revolution, right? Cheap, abundant natural gas has really driven all that investment to us. Very lucky in that regard. Currently, though, and I'll get into it a little bit later, the petro piece is down for us project-wise. I have a project pipeline of about 15 projects. It's got about $5 billion of capital investment in there and the potential to create 2,500 jobs or so. And no surprise, it's dominated by petrochemical. But currently, right now, what I'm working on, and when I say petro's down, we're working with at least 2 entities on turnarounds and investments on maintenance, and that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Project Pine is a carbon capture hub a little bit northeast of here. It would be on about 20,000 acres. They're going to do pipelines from the organizations up and down the channel. And really what's driving that, in June, the EPA announced its plans to move forward with Texas requests for primacy. And that's most likely going to happen, right? Given the primacy authority to Texas, and carry out the EPA's work is really going to accelerate some of these projects. And the one that we're working on now, I've seen the economic impact model on that. It's about 2,000 indirect jobs and about $1 billion of capital investment over the next several years on that. So that's a positive that we can control our own permitting on that and the timing. Second, energy, power generation. I'm not going to name names because I'm not very comfortable kind of giving folks investments out, so I'm going to stay with the code name on things. But Project Moonshot is an upgrade to existing power generation facility north of the channel. That's a tune of about $400 million, 25 new jobs, a Jetty/313 commitment incentive from the state has been committed through the school district on that. But this is one of several investments that company is making to increase its natural gas generation capacity of power to the tune of about 1.5 megawatts by 2028. And the significance of this, again, another state piece that's really driving this and helping us as we're kind of down on the petro side right now, is a 20-year low-interest loan of the tune of about $215 million from the Texas Energy Fund. And this is all, the process to fund new, reliable, dispatchable, energy onto the grid on demand, so we don't run into like how we had in February of a few years ago. So that's it right at this point.
That's it. That sounds like a lot.
Can I add something to that, Craig?
You can, yes.
He said power, so I can't not say something.
Oh, sorry. Her day job is Entergy, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not gonna go off the path too far. But I just want to reiterate how important that is. The ability to construct new power generation facilities in Texas. Fortunately, Entergy just received approval on our 2 new dispatchable units that will be constructed in Port Arthur and Liberty County to the tune of about $2+ billion. That's not just an investment from Entergy. That is an investment in the communities that are going to employ individuals that are going to provide additional tax revenue to the communities in which they're located. And then they're also going to create power that is going to attract additional investment from industries that are going to require those electrons. So I just wanted to reiterate the importance of those types of investments beyond just the industries that are locating because of it.
No, great point there, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the drivers, key factors for site location decisions, and certainly we've all seen those charts, right, from ERCOT and others about power demand in Texas, and I don't know what's beyond a hockey stick, but it's straight up, almost vertical, right, in terms of what we're going to need in the region. What you all may not know, right, is when these folks, professionals, travel to state association conferences, or Jonas just got back from a national conference, they are the envy of a lot of places around the country in terms of the size, scale, and scope of the projects that they are able to work on and be a part of. And many of you and your companies are the ones making those investments here across the Gulf Coast region. So we'll put on kind of look at your crystal ball here a little bit and thinking kind of out forward, maybe next 5 to 10 years. What changes do you potentially see in terms of the types of projects that you're going to be working on in your area, or what changes do you see in terms of the scope of the work, or how you may be going about your efforts to attract new growth and investment? So Jessica, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think that we'll see much of the same moving forward. But as I mentioned before, there's that innovation capacity that we're going to continue to see evolve. For a while, we were working a lot of green hydrogen projects, green and blue hydrogen and ammonia projects. We've started to see that tail off on the green side and starting to elevate on the blue side. So more blue gases, which of course lends itself to carbon capture and sequestration. Our geological formations in this part of the state are very favorable for carbon capture and sequestration, both onshore and offshore. So I continue to see that industry evolve. Again, sustainable aviation fuel, low carbon fuels, anything that is going to help companies meet those sustainability goals that they have internally. We have obviously seen that with some federal funding that the incentives may not be as lucrative as they were before to continue to develop those. So we're probably lagging a little until those products really make economic sense to use as a sole fuel source and not as a blended fuel source. Also logistics in the midstream market with the Denbury and Colonial Pipeline. We're seeing a lot of growth in our region because of the availability of those pipelines. And there's also a common carrier line that is looking to be constructed as well, so that multiple projects will be able to contribute to that infrastructure and move their product to a terminal and then for export.
All right.
Hold on, I forgot one.
Oh.
Data centers, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right. There you go. Jonas, thoughts about kind of future for the Victoria region? Yeah, so what we're seeing, much like power demand, is just the scale and scope of projects are just growing exponentially. The cost for development, the cost for project construction, project acquisition. So as the projects keep getting larger, the due diligence and the driving factors become even more critical for EDOs like ourselves to continue to position our regions and our state as the best place to do business in the world. And that remains the case because we see that happening across the board. So as we continue to work with these projects, continue to promote our regions, we also see responding to the geopolitical forces happening. That's the reshoring of industries. There's great opportunities for us with the key infrastructure and the sites and the assets that we all sit upon that we can market and take full advantage of. So we see the areas of with the tax credits expiring for some of the green chemicals, we kind of see that kind of tailing off a little bit, but we see
the continued growth of those critical minerals, metals, those types of projects, we're very excited about the future. We have a very, very robust project portfolio for those. We have about another $15 billion project portfolio of active projects that we're working that are looking in our region. Of course, they're not all going to land, but we're going to continue to do our best to get as many of them as we can. But also just mega site development for us. As these projects get larger, it's harder and harder to find spots for them. And so our area of Texas does have capacity, and so we have 2 mega sites that we are working to continue to improve the infrastructure within them. Actually 3 mega sites in our region that we're continuing to work with our partners to develop additional better infrastructure for those sites. And also our deep water ship channel, the Matagorda ship channel, is going through a process of deepening and widening that to accommodate larger vessels more safely. And we're very excited about that, unleashing the true potential of our region. And then last is we just have a new partnership in Victoria. Our 4-year university just changed affiliations to the Texas A&M University system. And excited just about the potential for alignment for that, just who we are and what we look like as a region of Texas. We did not offer 4-year degrees in agricultural and engineering, and that will no longer be the case. So a lot of our best and brightest will have the opportunity to stay local and support some of our large legacy employers and a lot of the new projects that are coming online in the very, very near future.
All right, a lot of great stuff happening in Victoria. Chad, what about where we are now? What do you see kind of future looking forward for this area?
All right, so I mentioned that pipeline before, and we've seen a real pullback on investment, strictly petrochemical, right? The competitive landscape's heating up, right? China's put a lot of cheap resin on the market. They've really increased their capacity. Couple that with tariffs and politics, it's really pulled things back here locally. But the end isn't here, right? We've kind of did our little windshield survey of our members and whatnot, that investments aren't canceled. It's really just kind of held back till things right itself and the confidence comes back a little bit more. Similar to kind of the down towards the Port Arthur area, we saw a lot of those sustainability projects through DOE and whatnot. In 24, I had about a list of 10 of those to the tune of about $2 billion. Nothing's really kind of carried over into 25 because, to be a little frank, I don't think a lot of those things can really kind of stand up on its legs without the subsidies. So what I'm going to really keep an eye on in the future, I'm going to score some points with the front right here, is both Sanjak and the port. We've seen a lot of green biofuels projects, whatnot. Whether it's basically it's been jet fuel, but I think we're trying to figure out as a region through Sanjak, through the Greater Houston Partnership, through stuff that's going on in Generation Park, how does the ship channel kind of fit into that whole biomanufacturing thing? So we're going to keep our ear to the ground on that. Carbon capture, you saw the permit action that's happening, going to keep our ear to that. Hydrogen is a process feed. There was a lot of those projects, again, through the DOE piece that we'll see how that kind of flushes out over time here. And then just really be ready for that market to turn on the petro and be there for them when that investment starts to happen again. And again, I'd be remiss not to mention the port, right? They spent nearly $1 billion over the last couple of years to expand and widen. You doubled your capacity in the last 5 years from 2 million to 4 million. Right, they're studying a third terminal at some point somewhere to get to the capacity of maybe 7 million TEUs. So if I'm not watching, logistics and maritime projects, I'm probably not doing my job. So with our institutions being involved, kind of the change in folks' production processes, Greater Houston Partnership, Generation Park, the port, there's a lot to watch here going forward. And it's the quick commercial. What I'll be doing for them is helping them find real estate, any data to analyze us versus somewhere else, any state, local incentives, and then really just advocating for that development, right? If you hit any snags, any impediments, we're pretty much your unpaid army to help out with that. So,
all right. Good segue there. I will echo, right, I see Brenda here. We're very excited about biomanufacturing. I won't say a lot here today, but just stay tuned. Big announcement coming next week in that space for the Houston region, which is going to be really exciting around the biomanufacturing space. So Chad started to talk a little bit about sort of what we would call the site selection process. When companies, many of your firms maybe have gone through this, right? When you're looking at relocation, growing, expanding, new investments, creating new jobs, companies will go through a process, right, of looking at site evaluations, and that's when they will contact or work with either through their real estate firm or through their consulting firm, work with these professionals to kind of understand what the opportunities are in these parts of the Gulf Coast. And so let's talk a little bit about site selection process and just what are some of the key factors that you all are seeing that are sort of helping drive site location decisions in some of the projects that you've mentioned here today that are locating in and along the Texas Gulf Coast. Maybe Jessica, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, sure. So I would say proximity to feedstock and proximity to the end user. So if they can cluster with other companies where they're buying product from and then shipping it to, then it's going to reduce their transportation costs and their logistics costs. So I would consider that one of the key factors in companies choosing one site over another. I would also say that any type of infrastructure that's currently in place that they can tie into, so an existing pipeline network, that kind of goes hand in hand with the transportation routes. Do they need deep water access? Can you get them to deep water access? But any ways that they can interconnect to existing systems to be able to reduce their costs of entering the market.
That's great. Jonas, any other thoughts about site selection process and some of the factors?
Certainly, yes. It's a capacity, potential, and speed. So as the projects get larger, what you have at your availability, what you have at your disposal, what you can become, and how quickly you can deliver are our driving factors. And the two major ones, two questions we always look at when we get opportunities are electricity and water. Is what are the demands and what do we have at our various sites that we like to market, and then what are the potentials that we can improve those capacities to serve large, great opportunities that are looking at Texas.
Okay. Chad, what thoughts?
Yeah, the question 1A and 1B is real estate and then workforce, right? I think we're in the greatest place on earth, again, in regards to infrastructure. I don't think that's really an issue for us on these projects. I think where folks really want to know is if they can get their people and available, productive folks. And for the last 2 years in partnership with the Greater Houston Partnership, we've hosted 14 site consultants on the San Jac campus, right? It's a strategic move to show them the asset and then show them the partnerships that industry has created with our institutions to give them the confidence that, you can find your people. Across the street, right, it's a $70 million facility. We had folks in there from Indiana that didn't want to leave, and these are professionals. I mean, that is world class. It's a building built by industry that I say happens to be on the San Jac campus. Brendy may disagree with me, but that's kind of my take of it, right? Absolutely world class, and really just ensuring that we have the environment to again, staff up somebody's billion-dollar operation and make them comfortable about their investment. But then we don't stop there either, right? We have the asset, you have that, we have the partnerships. Now, how do you fill that pipeline? And that's really where us as an organization comes in on that. We have a new person on staff, Patty recently retired. She does about 50 presentations a year, talking about the programs that are available here to get into it, change your life, the opportunities there. And again, that's something we articulate to these site selectors is, we can staff anything up. That's it.
No, that's great. I will, again, just echo the workforce. I know we had some students that came in as we've been up here speaking, right, just the opportunity. Companies want to know, is there a workforce today they can tap into? And then is there a pipeline of talent long-term that they can leverage here and be a part of helping shape that for the Houston region. We talked a little bit about power and infrastructure and the need for that. We talked about, Jonas mentioned speed to market. When we talk to companies, usually by the time they reach out to one of these economic development organizations, they're already sort of behind schedule in terms of where they want to be. And so some of these things, and then having available sites, land, real estate is really kind of a key factor. Do you have a building site, a location that fits this criteria? And that's part of their role, is really helping identify those locations and then bringing all those pieces together. Another big piece to the puzzle, and I know we've got a lot of important, influential leaders here in the community in and around the Houston region, is around incentives. right? And incentives sometimes can get a bad rap. The media likes to pick on incentives a little bit at times. But can you talk a little bit about the role that incentives play, both state and local incentives play in the process? Where do they fit in sort of the lineup of factors, and maybe how have they impacted some of the projects that you've been able to land in your region? Jonas, maybe I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, appreciate that. Well, I think I kind of have the same answer in every question, but as projects get larger, the tax liability of projects becomes more of a driving factor in where they're siting and locating their projects. And then they're looking, trying to do an apples to apples comparison. And a lot of our neighboring states have been very, very envious of the Texas miracle over the last almost a generation now, and are replicating a lot of the tools that we have. And some of the states are even offering more than what Texas has offered in years past. And so as we continue to market our ability to land these large investments, get these jobs created, and get this economic growth in our region, being able to offer a robust incentive proposal keeps us in the running. We always, we'll never win a project in any given day, but we can certainly lose one. And we want to do our best to keep the conversation going, keep our foot in the door, and that especially the property tax limitations are extremely critical for Texas to continue to secure large potential investments, and one that we usually begins our incentive conversations with projects.
Great comments. Jessica, any other thoughts about incentives and the role that they play in some of the activity you're seeing in the Golden Triangle?
Sure. So I would agree with all of that, and I'll go beyond the financial piece of it and speak to the importance of partnerships with companies that are looking to locate in your communities. We have to find out what their critical needs are, and it may go beyond a tax incentive. It may be that we have to assemble 7 parcels of land under the guise of the Economic Development Organization. Where are my GTP people out here? Yeah, in Orange County, that's exactly what we did, and we couldn't have put that deal together had we not had the buy-in from the community stakeholders and the importance of what they were able to do to align the property owners in the community to agree to essentially sign over their land without knowing who the buyer was going to be. So it takes a lot of trust and a lot of alliance with those community stakeholders and the projects, and even with the state too. It may be a permitting issue that you're going to need to expedite. So identifying what those factors are with the companies and being able to align with those individuals that can get it done.
No, that's great. Chad, any other thoughts on incentives and some of the programs you've seen here used in the Houston region?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a little different route on this than these guys. The Chapter 313 and the jetty is very important to the large capital investment projects in our region, no question, right? And the participating school districts agree too. But the enterprise fund, the jetty, the enterprise zone, the property tax abatement locally, they all have an expiration date. And when that ends, you better be certain you are where you want to be, right? And I think us as an organization understands that, and we work diligently on the business climate, trying to be a portion of that incentive piece, and we're doing our work to advocate for those incentives, keeping those in place. But we're in Austin, D.C., for favorable policy, funding for transportation for the port, right? And then even the pipeline of skilled workers. It's a mission of ours, right? It's an initiative within the organization, and then even with the coastal spine, protecting those investments that are happening here. So the incentive is important, but I really think that business climate is just as important. And I think us as an economic development organization, we're a little different than others. I don't want to put anybody down, but we have teeth. A lot of these EDCs aren't really kind of doing that policy work, doing that advocacy, and really pushing to make sure we have a positive business climate that's friendly for investment and for attraction of operations. So.
No, I think those are great points. Jonas mentioned a little bit just about the competitive nature, right? So the projects that these professionals are working on, right, these are competitive. These are companies that are looking at multiple cities, multiple states, even in many cases, multiple countries. in terms of where they're going to locate, where they're going to make new investments. And in a lot of cases, right, these incentives that may be offered either locally or at the state level is really just to get back to even playing field with other states that are more aggressive and offering more activity, and then
Craig,
how
I
we
want to
can
say,
compete on.
when you
Oh,
say that,
go ahead.
we are the playing field. Everybody's competing with us to get to here, so we
All right.
are the playing field.
There you go.
There you go.
So I'll give one example, and then I know we got time for a couple of questions here. I mentioned the biotech manufacturing project that'll get announced next week. In the 2023 legislative session, there was a bill passed that went to the voters that November that would exempt property tax for equipment and inventory for biotech projects in the state of Texas. That went to the voters in November of 23. It was passed and then went into effect in January of 24. And the first conversations we had with this large project were in March of that year, right? Less than 60 days later. So the incentives matter. They're an important part of the equation. They shouldn't be the leading question. They should be the icing on the cake at the end, but they are an important part of the process overall. So I mentioned a little bit. We got a couple of questions, several about the Buffalo Bills, which we're not going to answer. But I will say, right, one question around international versus domestic. Can you just talk a little bit? I know Jonas and I had a chance to travel together with Governor Abbott last summer on a trip to Asia, but can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing, maybe international investment versus domestic? Jonas, I'll start with you.
Yeah, a large part of our portfolio are foreign-based entities that are wanting to invest in the United States of America. And so we see that developing those relationships, being supportive of projects like that, it brings in, foreign capital into our regional economies, and they employ our friends and neighbors. So we were just last Monday of this week, we were attending with Caterpillar, one of the Korean Trade Association events in Chicago. And we're very excited about continuing to market. Texas is a great place to invest and a great place to grow businesses. So that is a very important part of our strategy is make sure that we are easy to find, and then we're supportive of companies that are unfamiliar of the development process, and then also just the how to start a life in a foreign world, but also. We also want to continue to grow Texas legacy industries and continue to provide more resources for companies that are based in the United States and are based in our region. So it's a balance. We don't necessarily choose. We just want to make sure that we're hospitable and welcoming and a great place for any and all.
Chad, did you have some thoughts on that from an international?
I was going to do the transportation one, but
Oh, okay. Choose a question, I guess, is the game we're playing here. Chad, you want to talk about transportation? Go ahead.
well, I guess I'll do your job and read it. So what are you hearing from companies looking to relocate here, the current state of our transportation network? I have to take this. Chad Burke would kill me if I didn't take this, right? Because this has literally been his baby for the last 10 to 15 years with this organization. They're probably going to call it Burke Highway at some point, 225 there. But we've done a lot of work with our local elected officials, our industry. We have a transportation infrastructure committee, and the issues are coming up from our members, from industry, saying things need to expand, things need to change. Right? You drive it every day at 146. You start to see the overlay on 225. You're starting to see the flyovers go to Beltway. You're building $1 billion bridge. You can't come off and take a right turn at a light. You got to keep going. So from moving people, product, safety, environment, we've heard it. We're doing it. And again, it's Chad Burke's baby, not mine, and I got to give it out there. So.
All right, we covered that one. So, round of applause. Okay, nice. I assume that's for Chad Burke.
I need to do something here too. Like Craig and I go way back, so if you're watching this dynamic, it's not like we just met today. We've worked together for almost 20 years, so we need to put that out there.
All right. We got a couple minutes left. I'm going to come back to the international question, Jessica, just see if you have thoughts on kind of international versus domestic. We did have a question about tariffs too, and maybe any impact you're seeing on that front, if you want to add that in, but just international versus domestic and what you all are seeing from an investment standpoint in Beaumont area.
It's probably 50-50 for our current pipeline. What we have done is we are going to be joining the Asian American Chamber of Commerce as a member to help bridge some of those initiatives to reach out more to international companies that may be looking to locate into the States or may already be here and are looking to expand. So we want to be a resource for them to expand their reach a little beyond the immediate Houston market. So we're looking forward to building those alliances with that community. As far as the tariffs go, as an entity, as an organization, we are not seeing a huge impact from that at this time. We can talk about the need for transformers and switching gear and all of that on the utility side all day. And we've obviously seen some bottlenecks there with being able to bring equipment in. But we've had a pretty good run so far on the tariffs front.
Okay.
You know, we have a real world example of that. It was probably early summer. We had the city sit at the table with a company to talk about their expansion. We had Sanjak's workforce people hiring 200 people, several $1 million expansion, several 100,000 square feet. Just a few weeks ago, we had conversations with Ted Cruz's office in Corning talking about the retraction of this project. It went from that investment, that job creation, to potentially laying people off at that operation. So it's real. I've seen it for real.
Sure. Yeah, no, we continue to see, right? I think there's certainly potential impacts. I know container cargo through the Port of Houston, at least through July, was at all-time record high. So we'll see what the long-term effects are. And then we're certainly seeing, on the flip side of that, what's the opportunity in the chaos. And there are certainly opportunities for foreign direct investment that we're seeing up and down the Gulf Coast overall. So before we thank our panel here, I'll just say this really quick. If your company is looking at expanding, growing, making new investments, creating new jobs anywhere along the Gulf Coast here, please have yourself or somebody from your team reach out to these professionals. There's a lot of great resources they can provide and support as you go through that site selection process. And so with that, help me thank our great panel here for kicking off the conference.